From the KUR Community Calendar, the Frederick Douglass Institute at KU will present Celebrating Black Music at 7 p.m. on Friday, March 1st in Schaefer Auditorium. The concert caps the Institute's efforts toward Black History Month and will feature the music of black composers, including jazz, pop, classical, spoken word, and hip-hop. The concert is free and open to the public. Checking KUR Sports, junior Kelly Groth of the Kutztown University women's track and field team has had a knack for setting school records in her track events this season. She was at it again as her 7.70 in the 60-meter won the event and set a new school record, joining freshman Tay Dyro as first-place winners and leading KU to the 2019 Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference Indoor Championship Saturday at Edinburgh University. It is the fourth title for Kutztown and the first since 2006. Groth won the PSAC's Most Outstanding Runner. You can read the full story at kubears.com. Special thanks to CJ Hemmerly, Assistant Sports Information Director, and kubears.com for the support.
Hey KU, it's Kayla,
Eric,
and Allie.
Here again from the Career Development Center. Mock Interview Mania is around the corner, and now is your chance to practice your interview skills with a volunteer interviewer. You might look great on paper, but how you interview is the true test. Good interviewing is a skill. Sign up on KUCN now for a spot. Dates are February 25th through March 1st, but be quick. This popular event fills up fast.
Monsoon Mike says the crazy winds calm down midweek. News at the top of every hour in your news leader, KUR Kutztown. I'm Mike Greggs.
Any views or opinions expressed on KUR are not necessarily those of Kutztown University, Kutztown University Student Government, Kutztown University Student Services Incorporated, KUR staff and management, or other affiliated organizations.
Kutztown Live. KUR's campus and community interest radio magazine. You can always be a part of Kutztown Live by giving us a call at 610-683-4859. And now, this is Kutztown Live.
Hello, and welcome to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. You're listening to Kutztown Live. My name is Laura Keim. I also have my fabulous co-host.
Hello. I am Juliana Jablonski. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon.
Very excited to have you listening once again. We had some really great guests last week, too, so if you missed last week's show, be sure to check out the KUR YouTube channel, as all of our guests are podcasted. But we have some really great people this week as well. We, on this show, have Julia Laudadio from the Andrew Goodman Foundation, also Professor James Gutierrez from KU's Frederick Douglass Institute and the music department, and then Kaiti Hershey, the vice president of the Kutztown University Wind Ensemble. So we've got a lot of great stuff, so don't go anywhere. We're here until 4 p.m. But first, we would love to introduce Julia Laudadio from the Andrew Goodman Foundation. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
This is very exciting. We're happy to have you here. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're up to with the Andrew Goodman Foundation.
Right. So my name is Julia. I'm a junior. I'm a social work major and philosophy minor. Since I started college, I've had a passion for civic engagement and social justice. Voting was really exciting when I turned 18, so I've kind of kept that going. So KU is a campus partner of the Andrew Goodman Foundation. The Vote Everywhere program gave me the opportunity to become a student ambassador and help other people engage with civic engagement as well.
That's great. Okay, so what can you tell me about the Andrew Goodman Foundation?
So the foundation carries on Andy Goodman's legacy. His story kind of goes like this. In May of 1964, the Civil Rights Act, of course, was under attack by segregationists in Congress. So in a school paper, Andy wrote, quote, "The senators could not persist in this polite debate over the future dignity of the human race if the white Northerners were not so shockingly apathetic." So he was basically tired of the apathy in Congress and believed in voter equality for all. So a few days after writing that, he asked his parents' permission to join Freedom Summer, the famous voter registration project aimed at registering African Americans to vote in Mississippi. And on his first day, he and two other civil rights workers, James Chaney and Michael Schwerner, were murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. So the story of these three young men was one of the events during the 1960s that sort of galvanized support for the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. So the website, the Andrew Goodman website, provides more resources, including books, documentaries, and movies and such, to learn more in depth about the political climate during the 1960s and bridge that gap between our past and present.
Okay, that's great. And so what is Vote Everywhere here at Kutztown?
So basically, we're a team. There's typically 2 undergraduate students, one being a student ambassador and the other being a team leader. And they work together to, make young voices and votes a powerful force in democracy. We are a completely nonpartisan organization. We believe that everybody, of course, over the voting age has a right to vote, an equal opportunity to vote. We work to break down barriers by engaging in voter education projects, and we also provide resources to register students to vote and get to the polls.
Okay, so what type of voter education projects do you work on?
So I think there's a lot of, we're so busy as young people, as college students. Not all of us have time to look at who's on the ballot and how to vote being away from home and being in college. What are absentee ballots? Who's on the ballot? How do I get to the polls? Specifically here at Kutztown, the polling place is miles away if you're registered with your campus address. So one of the things we did was we, educated students on, who would be on their ballot if they were registered here, who's on their ballot if they're registered at home, how do they vote at home if they can't get home. So pretty much anything that is involved in the voting process, we try to inform students and get out the vote in any way possible.
Well, that's really interesting. Okay, and why do you feel that there's a need for this type of education?
Sure. So, many people think that the civil rights movement is something that happened in the 20th century. It was, the 1960s. But the truth is it's still happening today. There are still disenfranchised populations that have a lesser access to voting. So Vote Everywhere is part of that movement to grant, voting rights for all. So even after the passage of the Civil Rights Movement, or the Civil Rights Act, the United States Supreme Court case, Shelby v. Holder in 2013, reinforced Vote Everywhere's importance. The case actually struck down provisions of the Voting Rights Act that had protected historically disenfranchised populations, voting populations. It really sparked an alarming rise in restrictions to voting rights in more than 20 states across the country. So it's now especially important to ensure that, eligible voters are informed, registered, and have access to getting to the polls. And as I mentioned, college students are a disenfranchised population because it is so difficult for us, amid all the other things we have going on, to figure out how to vote and to be educated on the voting process.
Sounds like really important stuff. And do you feel that college students make up a large majority of people who are disenfranchised, or do you feel that it transcends age?
Well, it definitely transcends age. There are certainly racial aspects to the disenfranchised voting populations. There are also the large majority of disenfranchised voting populations includes people who are imprisoned, people who do not have access to transportation, people who work because Election Day is not a holiday in the U.S., so people who cannot afford to miss a day of work. But college students are new voters. So new voters are definitely a part of a potentially disenfranchised voting population. Anyone ages, 18 to 22 or more or higher being in college are part of that disenfranchised population because we are new voters. The education, the resources are not always there. So basically, the purpose of the Andrew Goodman Foundation is to ensure that college students have the resources because they can be considered a disenfranchised voting population.
Okay. Do you feel that, when a student gets out of high school and enters college, that they have an adequate amount of education in order to vote, or do you feel that we all should learn more? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think we should all learn more. There's not, there are not really civic engagement classes specifically in high school, of course. I mean, there's education on how voting works and how, laws happen and how that kind of stuff, but it's not really practical, hands-on. So once people turn 18, that's not just like intrinsic knowledge. It doesn't just happen. And so basically the purpose of Vote Everywhere is to help that process happen. It's certainly accessible information. I mean, the information that I learned as a student ambassador came from the Vote Everywhere program and literature and research. I mean, I don't know things intrinsically about who's on my ballot. It does require research, but we make the process less intimidating for students.
Okay, so what do you think is a common misconception about the Andrew Goodman Foundation?
Well, like I said, we're nonpartisan. So, because we advocate for equality when it comes to voter rights, sometimes people can hear the words equality and progress and think progressive. But everyone in the U.S. holds democratic values. Every person who votes holds democratic values, and we believe that everyone should have the opportunity to vote. We are completely nonpartisan, and that's one of the values we hold. So,
that sounds great. Okay.
Well, I guess you obviously seem like quite passionate about all of this and voting and everything. So I guess I have kind of more of a two-part question. Just why is voting so important to you? And I know like when things come up around here and there's different elections for different things, I know like a lot of my friends like, I don't even feel like going to vote, or like what do you say to people our age about how important it is, or just kind of what do you have to say to students who might not be sure or don't know if they want to vote or all that?
Well, I want to say that it is an immense privilege that we have in a democratic society, in a liberal society. We have, and liberal being that we have freedom, right? That we don't live in a dictatorship. We have the opportunity to choose our elected representatives, to elect people out of office and into office. The people that don't have the opportunities to vote, the people that live currently in corrupt societies where they don't have the opportunity to vote, they look at nations and states where citizens do have that opportunity, and they are sad to see low voter turnout, because that's a right that, Western ideas and democratic societies, that's how, that's justice. That's what our society is based on. It's a privilege, and if you don't take advantage of it, the folks that say, I don't really care, you might not care to vote, but your elected officials will directly affect you. So either way, they care about you.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. So how can people get more involved in what the Andrew Goodman Foundation is doing?
So I'm a junior, and next year I will be a senior, and I will not really have time for this student ambassador position. So I'll be stepping down, and the application for the student ambassador position is on Engage. We also operate out of the Office of Student Involvement. Leah Casellia is our campus champion, and she is a wonderful resource. I also can give out my email, and Shanna Yarish is my partner, my team leader. I can give out her email, and obviously Leah Casellia, everyone has her email. And then the application is on Engage. And we encourage anyone who is passionate or even interested in civic engagement, all civically minded folks, to check it out and apply.
Okay, so what's involved in this position that you're doing? Just the voting education and things like that? Like what would someone who assumes this role be responsible for?
So for example, I'm doing this right now, getting the word out, talking about it, starting the conversation. We've had tabling events. We try to do it once a month. For February, we did a table focused on the civil rights movement, and how race was involved in that because it was Black History Month. But of course, that conversation needs to happen year round.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we try to have timely events, especially during election years, of course. Last fall, we bussed over 160 students to the polls.
Okay.
So coordinating that was really great. That's something that student ambassadors would get involved with. But mostly it's outreach, it's education, developing literature, and spreading the word.
Do you have, I know you mentioned you do different types of events. Are there any events coming up in the near future? Or
Well, I am currently working on an article that will be written for the Keystone newspaper.
Okay.
So that's less than an event, but more of like that's an option that student ambassadors can do, is to get the word out in like creative ways. Our next tabling event is in April, and of course, I don't remember which day.
Where are your tables usually?
Well, we try to place them strategically. So we've had ones in the old main lobby, or the concourse there. We've had MSU, so right upstairs here. The last one we had was in the library. Trying to figure out where the most engagement happens, usually in the MSU.
Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, what do you think is the most important thing someone should take away from this conversation, and what is the most important aspect of the Andrew Goodman Foundation that you'd like to share?
Young people do have and should have a voice in democracy. It's a privilege that everyone needs to take advantage of when they have it, and unfortunately, there are folks that can't, and we want to break down those barriers. And so, if that's something that you're interested in participating in, we want you to join our team.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. You are very well spoken, so we really appreciate everything. That has been Julia Laudadio from the Andrew Goodman Foundation. We'll be right back here on Kutztown Live with Professor James Gutierrez from the Frederick Douglass Institute, only here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR.
My son Casey was a bright, fearless 20-year-old with a boundless future ahead of him. But in the blink of an eye, he was gone. While out riding his skateboard, Casey fell. He was not wearing a helmet. Our whole family wishes he was. It could have saved his life. I'm Captain Kevin Raffelli of the San Mateo Police Department. Whether you're on campus or back home on break, strap on a helmet every time you jump on a bike or skateboard. Think of my son Casey and use your head. Put a helmet on. It could save your life.
A message from the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
The Northeast Berks Chamber of Commerce is your premier resource and voice for trusted local business. The Chamber advances regional economic and cultural growth through supportive collaboration with business and community organizations, as well as government. For more information, call the Northeast Berks Chamber of Commerce at 610-683-8860. That's 610-683-8860, or visit their website at northeastberkschamber.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Kutztown Live, only here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. You just heard some really great people talking about some really great stuff, but we just went over that before our break, so I won't take up too much time. Also, if you want to hear past episodes, we post them, we podcast them on YouTube, so there's a lot of really great stuff, to go back and listen to, so definitely check that out on the KUR YouTube channel. But right now, I have Professor Gutierrez here from Kutztown University Music Department and the Frederick Douglass Institute to talk a little bit about a whole bunch of different things. So,
hello.
How are you?
I'm doing excellently today, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So happy you're here.
Me too.
Great. All right, so what can you tell us a little bit about the Frederick Douglass Institute?
So, prior to coming here, I hadn't heard of the Frederick Douglass Institute either. As I dove into the application process over a year ago, I was really intrigued. I'd always been intrigued by the person of Frederick Douglass. He's such a towering historical figure. He was a reformer and an escaped slave and an abolitionist around the same time as Abraham Lincoln. In fact, when Abraham Lincoln was elected president, more people had heard of Frederick Douglass than had ever heard of Abraham Lincoln. So he was quite a figure in his time and left quite a legacy, especially for Pennsylvania, since part of the Underground Railroad he formed led to Pennsylvania. So the Institute at Kutztown is an organization named after Frederick Douglass, and wants it in order to promote the same ideas of equality and diversity among faculty, staff, and students. And it does this through scholarships, through research, through putting on forums and exhibitions, conferences. It hosts visiting scholars like myself. It also sponsors a debate team here on campus. It does a lot of things, all for the mission of promoting diversity and equality within our communities.
So what do you think is the most important thing that we should know about the Frederick Douglass Institute as citizens of Kutztown or citizens of the world? I mean, other colleges have Frederick Douglass Institutes, a lot of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, do they work together, and how can we break down barriers using the Frederick Douglass Institute? We can just go.
So there are lots of organizations that have similar missions of cultivating diversity and inclusivity. But what makes Frederick Douglass Institute unique, in my eyes, is this connection with the person of Frederick Douglass, and then his legacy of what he accomplished. Now, he accomplished lots of great things. I think the core of it really is captured in the FDI's mission, and that is he was a prime mover that brought about abolition in the United States through gradual change, through incremental change that took place in the mode of conversation and dialogue. He, person by person, convinced the nation of the immorality of what had been going on, and that not only was it wrong, but something political had to be done to change it. And that's not an easy task, and it took him years. But it was person by person, conversation by conversation, finding anybody who would listen, who would in turn tell somebody else who previously wouldn't listen, who will now listen. That broke down one of the strongest barriers to freedom in this country's history, in the world's history. And so on campus, what FDI tries to do, and it's stated in our mission, is to facilitate dialogue around ongoing issues of diversity in the vein of Frederick Douglass' own legacy. That in the mode of conversation, in dialogue, we interface with each other's differences, but more importantly, our samenesses, the things that we have in common, that we share, that can draw us together to overcome those barriers. And even though we saw after Frederick Douglass, even after abolition, after the Emancipation Proclamation, over 100 years later, the Civil Rights Movement broke down more barriers that had persisted. And I think we all are aware that these barriers aren't completely gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And so our presence here is primarily to promote this kind of dialogue that can address these barriers. But part of that is convincing people that there are voices out there that perhaps aren't being listened to. And it's not because we're not ignoring people because we're bad people. We're just not often in situations where we can listen to people who have different perspectives than we do. And so it's through these colloquia and through these discussion groups and through scholarship that we want to put everyone into contact with perspectives that are different than their own, so that perhaps we can learn something different about what barriers exist in the world and how we could be even tacitly contributing to these barriers, and what we can do to promote freedoms of a variety of kinds on our campus, in the intercampus system, and throughout Pennsylvania and throughout the country.
That's really great. So you are, as you say, a visiting scholar here. What area do you visit in?
What area do I, what department?
What department?
Okay, yeah, I'm teaching in the music department right now, and that's my background.
Okay, excellent. So what is involved, and what does music have to do with the Frederick Douglass Institute?
Well, because the mission is so broad for Frederick Douglass Institute, it invites scholars in any field to come and promote this mission in whatever department is suited to their expertise. So I've always been into music. I got a bachelor's degree in music and a master's, and I'm finishing my PhD this year as I'm working on in this fellowship. It's a great opportunity for me to practice teaching music at a full-time capacity while also promoting this mission of the Frederick Douglass Institute. And one of the ways I'm doing that in the music department is to create this concert that is taking place this Saturday, March 1st. And this concert is a celebration of black music. So one of the projects I'd worked on prior to coming to Kutztown was in San Diego, where I lived before. And I worked with refugee musicians that had come to San Diego as asylees and refugees. And these communities were growing. More refugees were embraced by San Diego than any other city in California. But nobody in the public sphere of San Diego knew who they were or where they were. They were in isolated communities. So what I did with the Center for World Music was promote concerts where these refugees would be able to share their music and their culture to the San Diego public through a whole series. And also they would get paid and promote an artistic career. And this was such a great experience for me and for most people involved. And I get to see their careers already blossoming as a result. So when I came to Kutztown, we were trying to identify what kind of project would be good for me to work on that utilizes my experience and the mission of Frederick Douglass. And so what we came up with was a similar kind of concert where we could work to get students paid, which as a musician yourself can appreciate any opportunity for a musician to get paid.
Absolutely.
Performing repertoire that isn't performed as much. So this concert, this Saturday, every single composer will be a black composer. And what we did was create a music competition statewide for high school students and Kutztown University students to submit the recordings of their own performances of any genre, as long as the composer was a black composer. So on our program we have classical music and jazz and pop and hip-hop, and we'll have even a couple spoken word performers come and share. So it'll be a really diverse program with all kinds of music and a talented group of students who are rising up and emerging.
Oh, that's really exciting. So you had submissions from everywhere in Pennsylvania?
We have submissions from, including New Jersey as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, lots of submissions.
Interesting. Okay, so you said that it transcends all kinds of genres. So was it just those 4 genres in spoken word, or did you have other things as well that surprised you?
So we can say that those genres will be the ones represented, and people will know what I mean. But the kind of artists that are being performed, anywhere from Duke Ellington to Childish Gambino, a lot of these artists work to transcend their own genre boundaries. So we'll be representing those composers that are really hard to categorize. So I would say it's a trans-genre program altogether, for sure.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, and so how does that reflect the message of Frederick Douglass in the lens of music on our campus specifically?
So a lot of this repertoire is not really performed anymore. Just for one example I'll mention is a violin and piano duet that'll be performed, composed by H.T. Burleigh. And he was one of the first black composers to be accepted as a legitimate composer in the early 1900s. And this piece is called the Southland Sketches. And was a big deal at the time because there was such a race divide in music that people were very surprised to see a black composer rise to such notoriety in what was considered a really sophisticated domain. And he broke that boundary, this composer, and yet most students have never heard of H.T. Burleigh.
Yeah, I'm a music major and I've never heard that name. That's crazy.
Yeah, so part of how this concert fulfills Frederick Douglass' mission, and Frederick Douglass himself was a music lover. His grandson became a concert violinist, and Frederick Douglass, in his writings, praised the role of music in promoting hope in slave communities, as well as creating a signaling system for slaves to organize their escape efforts. Music played a huge role in that whole era. So by championing this music that played a role in the rise in status of the black artist, we're demonstrating and keeping alive the memory of what these composers had gone through in order to create this music, and really adds a layer of significance to the performance than just come hear this music. There's a rich history that shouldn't be forgotten.
Absolutely. That sounds really interesting. Okay. Okay, so what are some of the other programs that the Frederick Douglass Institute offers here on campus?
Yeah. So the scholar is one, and there'll be a new scholar coming here next year. Sadly, I won't be able to teach here. I've had a lot of students come and ask me, are you going to be here next year? And I have to say, no, probably not. But we also have a discussion series, which is a series of talks that are given every semester by scholars on campus or visiting scholars from away from campus. And they share on any topic related to diversity or inclusivity.
Okay.
We had one scholar recently from England, and I can't remember his name, sadly, but he came and shared about the history and the moment, the interesting moment when Frederick Douglass visited England, and what an emergence of support rose up for him in England. So he came over here from England to share at Kutztown about this history. And we have another colloquia coming up pretty soon.
Oh, and what colloquia is that?
So this was shared by Dr. Siobhan Shorter, and she talked about the power of research as an undergraduate, which is not a common thing you see occur on a lot of campuses, is that it's for the undergraduate to consider what questions they want to apply to actual research, not just going to classes and doing the coursework, but encouraging students to develop their own research questions, which are questions the world has right now that aren't being addressed properly by scholarship. Undergraduate students have a role and a potential to start asking those questions now, especially the students who are thinking about going to grad school. So this colloquia focused on encouraging students to consider their own research path.
That's interesting. So how would a student go about researching at an undergraduate level?
Oh, the first step is to go approach a professor who focuses on an area where your question exists. And the professor can help put you in contact with other scholars, either through their own writings or through real contact with scholars that you can interact with face-to-face or on FaceTime or in lots of different venues or through email. That would scholars love when undergraduates come to them asking them questions. It really gets them thinking and reminds scholars that they're working on something that has meaning to a next generation. Undergraduates, I think, through no fault of their own, tend to resort to going through the motions. But there's a world out there that has problems that need to be resolved, and these students are up and coming. They are the up and coming problem solvers, and to be a well-informed problem solver means to begin with research. So I'd say the first step is to go approach a professor in your area.
Interesting. Okay. So what do you think are some common misconceptions about research as a grad student or as a college professor or something like that? And how can that affect how us as undergrads who are potentially interested in getting involved in research and stuff like that, how can that affect how they would view it?
Well, I'd say that the primary misconception about research is that it's somehow clearly defined. I'm going to get this job doing this. It makes sense. I know my structure. I'm going to go to work and get paid. I'm going to be a researcher. I have my job is clearly defined. And that's not at all true, representative of what research in any field is like. Research is about not knowing what questions you even have to ask and approaching a problem set from the attitude of, I'm confused, and let me just try to sit down today and get a little bit less confused and start just polling all the other confused people about possible directions this could take and trying to sort through solutions creatively. So there's this feeling that we all have when we're confused about something, and it's not comfortable. And from a psychological standpoint, it makes sense. We have a bias toward finding a path forward that's definitive. So there's this lack of comfort with the base condition of research, which is being confused. So I'd say for students to instead of being pushed away by this feeling of not knowing exactly what the right question to ask is, or just going toward those things that have clearly defined answers, if you can instead see it as an opportunity to creatively explore an area where you could contribute to structures that will find answers, that is a different way of looking at a confusing problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've had in my classes, my music theory classes that I teach, I like to approach it from that same lens of of research. Instead of saying, here are the problems, here's how you solve them, give me back your homework and I'll give you red X's over the wrong notes and give you show you what the right answers are so you don't get wrong answers so you can pass the class. Instead of having that kind of lens, I try to look at it like music is an open and evolving field that you are joining and will become part of. What are the musical problems that exist now, and how can we together explore what new approaches might be to asking analytical questions for music that is being made right now. And some students like that. Other students would just rather be told what the answer is. Like, don't give me this vague stuff. Just tell me what's on the test and tell me how to do well enough on it that I can move on to the next task. And that makes sense. We all want to do well on our tasks at hand. But I think in your life, you face a complex web of questions, and you fortify yourself by getting used to that feeling of not knowing what the answers are, but pushing ahead anyway. Getting used to walking the areas where where confusion is common is the baseline.
Okay. So how does that, and how can we take that mindset and apply it to social and racial inequities in our society right now?
Well, there are a lot of questions posed, and the challenges posed by Frederick Douglass are ongoing, and that's why this institute exists. With the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been the largest movement perhaps since the Civil Rights Movement for empowering a sense of Black unity, is asking really important questions that haven't been resolved yet. What to do about violence within Black communities, and then violence exerted from state power onto these communities. Who has a voice for those communities? How can they attain a voice and tell the world what it is that they need and what's going on in their neighborhoods? How students from underprivileged areas and underserved communities find their way into education that can break certain cycles that exist in these communities. Poorer areas in Chicago and in New York, for example. Problems faced by these groups and individuals within these groups are not easy. But it's through asking the questions first, like how do we go about doing that? Well, my project with this concert is one small solution for a small group of people, but it's musicians who want to popularize and keep these traditions, these repertoires alive, and get paid in the process.
Yeah.
That's one thing that an institute like Frederick Douglass Institute can do to address these questions in a tangible way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. Okay. Awesome. I love that. I love everything about that, honestly. That sounds like something really to keep in mind as we interact with each other and as we go forward through our, school lives and our work lives and all of our stuff. Well, thank you so much for Professor Gutierrez.
We really thank you for having me.
You can attend the Black Music Competition concert on March 1st?
March 1st, at 7 p.m. in Schaefer Auditorium.
Excellent.
Free. It's absolutely free to attend. No cost.
Great. That's what I love to hear. It's honestly, if it's free, then you should go, everyone.
Absolutely.
All right. We will be right back here on Kutztown Live, only here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR.
We are talking about our world today. Oh, and someone's on the line.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
Welcome, Jacqueline. How old are you? You sound so young.
I'm 8.
Oh, wow. I assume you're a student, right?
Yes, from Jefferson Elementary. And I have a question.
Sure. And what's your question?
We all know the Earth has 7 continents that currently carry 193 countries. Those continents make up 29% of the Earth's surface, meaning that the vast majority of our planet, 71%, is comprised of water. Taking into consideration man automatically adapts to environmental conditions, why is it that I need to take swimming lessons?
Are you ready for kids who eat healthy? Good nutrition can lead to great things. To find out how a healthy lifestyle can help your child succeed, go to mypyramid.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council and USDA.
Welcome back to Kutztown Live, only here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. We just heard from Professor James Gutierrez from KU's Frederick Douglass Institute and the KU Music Department, talking about the Black History Month music concert that's happening on Friday. Some exciting stuff. It's at 7:30 in Schaefer Auditorium, and it is free, so we just love to reinforce all of that. Up next, though, we actually have some more fun music information. This is a music-heavy week this week. We have Miss Kaiti Hershey from the Kutztown University Wind Ensemble. She's the vice president, and she is fabulous. So we are going to talk to her a little bit about what the Wind Ensemble is up to. Hi, Kaiti.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. What do you have to tell us a little bit about yourself and the concert and wind ensemble and stuff?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm Kaiti Hershey. I'm a sophomore flute performance major here at Kutztown University. I've been playing flute and piccolo for like 10 years now, so music has been a part of my life for over half of my life. So it's my biggest passion, biggest love, and I really feel like the department here has such a fantastic music program that we'd love to talk about today.
Perfect. Okay, so what can you tell us a little bit about the department and the wind ensemble?
Yeah, so the band program at Kutztown University, we offer a variety of performance and educational opportunities for all university students. Whether you're interested in pursuing a degree in music or you're simply looking to continue with music as a source of entertainment and self-growth, it's really an exciting time to get involved. The department here has a bunch of different ensembles. We have the Wind Ensemble, which I am a part of. That is comprised of the top woodwind, brass, and percussion musicians by audition. It's open to any majors. You don't have to be a music major to join this ensemble, but you do have to audition, and then you're placed in that. And then we also have Symphonic Band, which is open to all musicians of any levels. You can be a beginner or music major, it doesn't matter. There is no audition for that one. So those are the two that I'll talk about today.
Okay, perfect. So what can you tell us about the wind ensemble?
So the wind ensemble, we perform like 2 to 3 concerts a semester. In the fall semester, we perform 3, which includes our holiday concert. This semester, we have 2, and we're actually going on a tour, which is exciting. That's this week. But our concert is actually this Saturday, March 2nd at 3 p.m. here at Schaefer Auditorium. It's free and open to the public. The theme is of fables and fairy tales, which is a unique theme. Everyone's really excited about it. It's bringing in music that you might have heard when you were younger as kids, or maybe not so you're older. We're actually playing 4 pieces. I can go through and talk a little bit about each of the pieces. So the first one is Children's March by Percy Granger. This is the typical march. It's a light, carefree work. It's fun to play. It's got lyrical moving lines, beautiful melodies. It showcases all the different families of instruments, lots of soloistic lines, so it's really fun. Then we have La Inglesina, or Little English Girl. This is by Del Cease. It is another typical march. It showcases our brass, which we have a fantastic brass department here. Again, it's a little bit like Children's March in that it is a march style, but it's exciting, it's big, it's Italian, so it's really fun to play. Our next piece is Symphony of Fables by Julie Giroux, who we absolutely adore here at Kutztown. She is an American composer that is actually still composing today, which is really cool. And she's a female composer, which is awesome to have representation of that here. This piece was actually commissioned for the United States Air Force Band, and each movement is based off of a different children's stories, but they're almost stories that aren't as common. At least I wasn't familiar with a lot of them, but like there's The Lion and the Mouse, The Three Billy Goats Gruff, and The Pied Piper, which I'm biased, but it has a really awesome flute solo in it, so that one's my favorite. And then our final piece, which is probably the biggest piece we've done in a while, is actually Carmina Burana by Orff. This piece is actually a huge choir work. It's probably the most frequently performed choir work to this date. It's based off of 24 poems. It literally translates. Carmina means songs in Latin, and Burana is the Latinized form of Burin, which is a monastery. And the whole piece is about musicians who are celebrating like earthly humor of the joys of the tavern, nature, and love. So that's kind of a brief overview. So we hope to see everybody there.
That's very exciting. Okay, and so what is different about the Kutztown University Wind Ensemble as opposed to like a high school band concert? that people are more used to seeing, I feel like.
Yeah, I think high school band concerts, there's a lot of talking in between the pieces. The pieces aren't as long usually, so you probably have more pieces than only 4. One thing that our director, Professor Daniel Nguyen-Schwander, who is the director of bands here, stresses that we have to be musicians at the end of the day, and musicians don't just sit down and play notes. We create stories. We're storytellers, and we play with feeling through this music. So we work so hard to make it musical and to make it lyrical and sound interesting, because as an audience you want to be engaged and you want to be involved. And I think that that's something that college bands do well as opposed to high school bands when you're still learning the notes in high school.
That's reasonable. Okay. And so when is this concert again?
This concert is this Saturday, March 2nd at 3 p.m. in Schaefer Auditorium.
Okay, perfect. And it's free?
It's free for everybody.
Love that.
Yes.
Do you have social media that we can find out about future concerts?
We do. If you follow on Facebook, it's Kutztown University Wind Ensemble. On Instagram, it's KU Concert Bands. So if you follow that, we post updates, stories, fun pictures.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, great. Is there anything else that you think, that you would like to add about the Wind Ensemble, or anything that you feel like is super important that people should walk away with knowing?
I think just knowing that music is such a universal language, and it is for everybody. And I think if you are a musician, if you played an instrument when you were younger, we'd love to have you. We absolutely love people who aren't music majors coming in and playing, because it gives us a different experience. It gives you a great experience. I've had the joy of working with so many fantastic people, like yourself, Laura, who's in orchestra.
I am in orchestra.
And it truly is the greatest thing about Kutztown University. So if you don't want to be in the ensembles, just come out to our concerts, show some love, show some support, and we're very grateful for all of that.
Also, if you are in intro to music, you can get a lot of times extra credit, or
Yes.
it's required depending
Yeah.
on, your professor and stuff like that. So that does count.
Yes.
Also, it's just a culturally enriching experience. Highly recommend.
And they're short, under an hour.
That's good. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for stopping on to the KUR studios this afternoon. It was wonderful to have you. Are there any final thoughts or things you'd like to say this afternoon?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thanks for coming in.
All right. It was wonderful to have you. And we will be right back with more of Kutztown Live. All right. So,
Exquisite Corpse. A very unusual and completely amazing story pieced together out of so many parts that it is not possible to describe them all here, so go ahead and just start reading. The full moon lights the silver rails winding around dark mountains and over steep gorges of jagged rock and one freezing cold rushing black mountain river. I wish there was enough time to describe all of the funny twists and turns, especially the elephant clown party, that led up to now, but there isn't enough time, because there is a ticking clock, and the 2 passengers we care most about don't know anything about it. In a sleeping berth in the 3rd car from the end of the train are 2 children, 11-year-old twins who have just run away from the circus. The girl's name is Nancy, the boy's name is Joe. They have no idea that those are not their true names, though they will figure it out soon enough. To see what happens next, visit read.gov to read The Exquisite Corpse, a riveting adventure pieced together by John Sheska, Shannon Hale, Daniel Handler, and other popular authors. Explore new worlds. Read. This exciting message is brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Great.
Welcome back to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. You are listening to the last 10 minutes of Kutztown Live. I am Laura Keim, if you missed that in the beginning of the episode, with also...
I am Juliana Jablonski here on Kutztown Live, Kutztown University's campus and community talk show. We had some wonderful guests today. Who did we have?
You just heard from Kaiti Hershey from the Kutztown University Wind Ensemble. Before that was Professor James Gutierrez from the Frederick Douglass Institute here on campus, and also he's a professor of music. And before that was Julia Laudadio from the Andrew Goodman Foundation.
Shout out to all of them today.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful having all of them this afternoon. We love love our guests. And if you want to be a guest on Kutztown Live, we would love to have you, help you promote your event or anything on campus. So
yes, you can email me lkeim974@live.kutztown.edu, or you can email KUR, message us on Facebook, whatever you're feeling. We got all kinds of social media, so send us a line or a smoke signal or something like that.
Something like that. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Talking about love to hear from, I brought this up to Laura a minute ago. I am trying to get in contact with the Kutztown Botany Club. I was literally searching everything, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, and I can't find anything that's active or has been recently active in several years. But last year, they do their plant sale every year. Last year it was on March 8th. I looked back at the photos, and so I just want to know when their plant sale is, and we can support your plant sale here on the radio. But they sell really great plants at a really good price.
What kind of plants?
Because they grow them in the little greenhouse. Mostly succulents and types of things.
Love a
but
good
they're
succulent.
$1, and it's crazy. And I always get so many, and I love it. And so I know the time is coming up, but I want to know the day, and so I don't miss it. So if you are in the Botany Club or know somebody, please contact us.
Yes, you can contact us through our social media. You can also contact us. You can call our manager 610-683-4059. We just need to hear from the Botany Club. Honestly,
I've been trying to find it everywhere in the Kutztown schedule. I've been looking. So if you or someone knows, I would love to know. So thought I'd throw that one out there into the world.
Oh my gosh! All right, Julia. What do we know that's happening on campus right now? What are we sure of?
Nothing at the moment, but
nothing at the moment.
Okay. Is there something you have to bring up?
Not necessarily. Just wondering what you're up to over there.
I just had a few different things to talk about. I guess related to the radio. IBS, the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Radio Awards are this weekend in New York City. Oh,
I'm so excited.
Are you excited? Did you go last year?
I did go last year, yes.
All right. I went my freshman year, so I haven't been since. So
yeah.
It'll be exciting. I get to go my freshman and senior year.
Ooh, fun.
Coming for full circle.
For those of you who do not know anything about the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Conference, it happens, it's basically any college can attend, and it is a series of workshops and symposiums, I guess, if you want to put it that way, of people in the radio field and in the media fields talking about what makes a successful DJ, what makes successful talk radio and music radio and all that kind of great content that we're trying to send your way here at KUR. But I mean, we have a lot of different universities. It's a cool networking event for us. We reach out to other schools and talk about what they're doing and what works for them. It's a lot of cool stuff, and it's also an award ceremony, and we were nominated for seven awards. I feel like I'm out of it. It's definitely 7 awards. We got a lot of good stuff on that. So
yeah, even my country music show is nominated. Gonna throw in a little plug there for that.
She's fabulous, y'all. I mean, I just can't.
I host Kutztown's Country on Monday nights from 5 to 6 here on KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University. But I am nominated for Best Use of Facebook. So I guess the people like my Facebook, so go ahead and like Kutztown's Country on Facebook. It's Kutztown's, then Country with the letter K. So
yes. Also, if you search Kutztown Live, we have a Facebook page as well. If you don't already like it,
Kutztown Live.
Yeah, but
page.
Sorry, throwing that in there.
Of course, you have to.
Absolutely.
So yeah, IBS is definitely something we're all looking forward to. There's been a buzz around the station here lately. Everyone's excited.
Yes, definitely.
In other just fun world news, it's not even news. I feel sick calling it that. Katy Perry is recently engaged to Orlando Bloom.
Oh my goodness.
On Valentine's Day in a helicopter. So congrats.
In
to
a
them.
helicopter?
I didn't get to. They announced it all on Jimmy Kimmel. So
okay.
I didn't get to read the whole thing because I've just been skimming it. But the reason I was thinking of Katy Perry is because she's a judge on American Idol, and American Idol, they had 15 seasons, and they did their farewell season, and we were all like, great, thanks, bye, it was great. But then they came back and had another season, and now they're back again. So it starts up again on this Sunday. So if you're an American Idol, I don't know, do you watch American Idol?
I used to watch it a really, really long time ago. I'm talking the OG hosts with Randy
Paula.
and Paula and Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell. I remember him looking at one person and just being like, that was terrible. And I, as a musician myself, like, I feel like that moment was like one of those things that I was like, he did not. And I was like 8. You know, I was sitting there, I was like, I've played the cello for about 4 seconds, but this man just told this girl that she was terrible on live television. Or not live, but it might have been live. I don't know. I don't know in what point in the season it was, but I thought that was interesting. And then I used to tell my mom that I was going to be on American Idol, and I used to be like singing all the time. I'd be like, I'm going to be on American Idol. Fun fact, I don't sing. Like, I'm not a singer. It's not my deal. So I don't know why I thought that was a reasonable path for me, but
I feel like everyone wanted to audition for American Idol. Like, even I'm the worst singer in the whole world. And I was like, you know what? I think I could audition. Like, it's just something everyone wants to do. I don't know.
Are you a fan of American Idol?
My family, it's kind of like growing up was always like on Sunday nights we'd watch like America's Funniest Home Videos or but my family show we would always watch. Like, we loved the auditions and we'd all like run home to watch it together. And so even now, like, I'm at school, like, I'll watch it and I'll like text my mom at home like, oh, did you see that? Or so yeah, I guess I'm a fan. I don't, not as much as I used to be, but Katy Perry, it's like Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and Lionel Richie are the judges now.
Interesting.
And I think, like, Katy Perry was, like, the best one. She always gave, like, the most, like, she was the most unsuspected one that I didn't think she'd be, like, the best judge. But, I don't know, they've had a bunch of different people on there.
How constructive is her criticism?
Like
Like,
out
helpful?
of all three, I think she gives the best constructive criticism. Yeah, definitely, I think her, because Luke Bryan, of course I love him because country music, but he's not the most constructive criticism giver in the whole world. Lionel Richie, he's just kind of average. He kind of goes back and forth. But yeah, it's definitely been interesting to watch all three of them together. So I'm excited for it to come back on Sunday. I'm excited to see it. I think the auditions are the best part. But our time here this afternoon is coming to a close. We've got a few seconds left before the end of the show today.
Yes, follow us on social media for more updates on who we'll have next week. Listen to us on YouTube for podcasted stuff. All that goodness, only here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. Thanks for tuning in.
The radio voice of Kutztown University. On air at 1670 AM. Streaming online at www.kutztown.edu/KUR. At select times of the day on Service Electric, Berks Channel 24. Hometown Utelecom Channel 191. Service Electric Lehigh Channel 266. On your smartphone using a free app like TuneIn. You can listen to KUR anywhere you have a phone. Like that landline, just by dialing 563-999-3101. You can also hear your favorite KU Radio programming at any time on Mixcloud.com/KU Radio. It's your favorite shows whenever you want them. KUR, Kutztown University's source for music, talk, and everything in between.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson. US President Donald Trump has arrived in Vietnam ahead of his second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Meanwhile, President Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen is expected to give explosive testimony in front of lawmakers in Washington this week. And the United Nations has launched a record appeal to raise more than $4 billion this year to help the people of Yemen.
Local news continues on your news leader here in northeastern Berks County, KUR Kutztown. Kutztown University has been recognized by Lend.edu as an institution that provides some of the most work-study aid to students. Specifically, KU ranked 83 out of 409 schools that were analyzed for the report. On average, KU provides about $2,572 to each work-study participant, second most in Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. Further, KU provides 468 jobs through the work-study program for the most recent academic year. In other news, Kutztown University has a new arts society comprising community and university volunteers who are dedicated patrons of the arts. The Kutztown University Arts Society primary goal is to help advance and support the visual and performing arts both at Kutztown University and in the surrounding community. You can hear an interview with Brian Zellmer and Ben Hoffman on our Kutztown University Radio Facebook page. Pinned to the top on Monday, Emily Schlegel did the podcast, and you can hear all about the new Kutztown University Arts